Well, so, greetings. Let me just check in with you guys. I'm not sure how many people are here because my computer, for some reason, YouTube is not showing me anything. Greetings. I'm still sort of getting set up, but I just wanted to put a few things on few things on notice here. So, greetings, Mr. Eastman. And I did get your notes, by the way. And I can't remember. I'll have to figure out how to access them. But if you wanted to, it looks like an extension of a story. And if you want to go public with it, I'd be happy to be your voice. And I'll read it all out. I haven't read it fully. I only saw a couple lines. And I have not read it fully yet. But anyway, there you go. Like the Backstreet Boys. Okay, so let me go over here and check in with everybody. First of all, hello. Greetings. Greetings all. Greetings. So this is just a kind of a spontaneous show. I felt really kind of like I have to do something. Hey Nikki. I see Nikki, I see Lena, I see William. So anyway, it's very hot over here right now. Outside here in the studio, it's nice and cool. It's lit and we're managing okay. But outside, it's about let's see, 105, 107 degrees. Which is about 43 degrees Celsius, if anyone's interested. I just thought I'd mention that. So, yeah, greetings all son. So, I don't know if any of you guys have noticed how things are getting pretty strange around the world at the moment. Hello, Path. Yeah, Astro Talk, yeah. Things are a little bit spinning out at the moment. I see this as history in the making, and we happen to be a few of the 7.5 billion people alive on planet Earth who are going to live through this experience. A lot of people are going to live through the experience in their own ways, some very different from others. Some people will profit astronomically. Many people will be confused, and several billion people are going to be economically damaged or destroyed. It's that bad, or it's that good, depending on which side of the equation you live. So, anyway, as you know, because I wrote about this a while back, a lot of this is highly predictable. Hi, Lena. Yeah. So a lot of this is highly predictable. The landmark moment that I identified was January 2020, and I identified the rest of the year of 2020 as being a monumental calendar moment in world history. I think going back to the time of the Egyptians, the times of the Romans, think in terms of empires, okay? Almost all of them can be correlated to astrological patterns. Like there's the Egyptian Empire. I'm not going to go into it because I'm not an expert at mundane astrology, but I guaranteed if I managed to spend a few weeks and somebody paid me a few $1,000s, I could find the astrological correlations. But anyway, think of the Egyptian Empire, and then the Greek Empire, and then the Roman Empire, and then the Spanish Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, okay? The Chinese had an empire, okay, back in the day. And then things evolved. They had the Ottoman Empire, and all the way up to the British Empire in the last century. And today, I think what we have is the American Empire. And it is a cyclical thing. It just empires come and they go, and they shift and they change, okay? Yeah, chat amongst yourselves, because I'm just going to be ranting for a while, okay? This is just going to be a Tarot Illumination rant, like we did recently. Um, I'm staying out of it. Uh, I'm trying to keep myself as insulated as possible from all the turbulence as the waves go up and down. Uh, Partly, in some ways, I'm lucky because I'm already out of it, so to speak. But I'm still being observant. I'm not gorging on the news, but I am taking note of certain things that interest me, like global currency markets and the comings and goings of the planets, and anything that correlates to what I sense is pending revolution. Okay? Hello, Love Triber, I see you. I'm just going to make a note of a few things here. Just get it on the recording, just for the record. So give me a second, okay? Okay. A while back, we did a show or a recording, I can't remember, and I went on a rant, and I identified 4 big energy factors that all of us on planet Earth need to take into account in order to, let's say, navigate and manage our lives as effectively and productively and in as healthy a way as possible. So right now, at this moment in time, we still have 4 major retrogrades: Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And so what that's doing, it depends on the nature of the planet, okay? Okay, so with Venus, you might consider the energy of relationships. Things that are out of whack have maybe started to come into alignment. Things that are apparently okay suddenly go out of alignment and they need reviews. Also think of money and finances. If you think of Venus, very closely related to day-to-day global finances, the concept of money, the concept of value, the concept of worth, Venus goes retrograde. And what I believe is happening in the global financial markets, every country on earth, every nation, every empire is now going to be forced to deeply examine their self-worth, their value, their values, their money, their currency. So Venus retrograde, it's already starting to show in the global markets regarding very, let's say, unstable behavior in the currency markets. For example, China is doing this thing that it likes to do to maintain parity. In other words, if America does this, China does this. If America does this, China does this, okay? And the idea is to maintain parity so that the United States does not get any advantage or disadvantage over China. So typically what China likes to do is always keep its, let's say this is China, what China likes to do is keep its currency really cheap and cheaper than America so that it makes it easier for China to export to the rest of the world. If the value of their currency goes up too high, then everything becomes more expensive. And the Chinese economy is heavily dependent on exports. And of course, you've probably heard how the whole world is starting to smell funny things about what's happening in China. So there's a tremendous amount of distrust regarding China, and a lot of big corporations across the world who are linked to China are starting to consider how to retract and how to protect themselves, even if it means higher costs for their own markets. So there's one thing, for example. Other countries, like Tehran, I believe India, Iran, so most of the African countries, most of them are going through massive convulsions as their currencies are getting pulverized with the shifts in market right now. All of this relating back, of course, to the virus. Lebanon is another country whose currency is just being devastated, okay? The United States is different because we are what's called the reserve currency. And it makes us very, very fortunate because it's like we can go, ha, 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 ha. We have the United States American Infinity card. It's like having a massive credit card, and we can do whatever we want. If we need another trillion, we can just put it on the card and nobody can stop us. But that actually presents problems for the rest of the world. I'm not a proper economist, so I can't tell you any more, but everything that I'm observing makes perfect sense to me. The massive disruptions in the currencies, Venus retrograde, and so on and so on. Look at Jupiter. Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter is not happy in Capricorn. Jupiter likes to be expansive, ebullient. Jupiter already knows the answers. Jupiter is the great healer, the great benefic. And when it's in Saturn, it's like Jupiter is operating on choke collar, like, how can I be Jupiter? How am I supposed to be Jupiter when I got a choke collar while I live through the sign of Capricorn? This really sucks. And everything wonderful and glorious about Jupiter turns into something that's actually a bit of a problem. And Saturn is retrograde. Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn is very happy in Capricorn. It's the reality check police, the people who actually go out there and do the work of Pluto. So Saturn is retrograde in Capricorn, and there's a bit of a problem. I don't know if some of you have noticed that there's call it the reality check police. Sometimes they're going a little over the top, and we're starting to get a lot of disruptions around Earth, around the globe, between like honest, legitimate ways of conducting our lives, conducting our business, relative to abusive ways of conducting life and business. In other words, like the communist dictatorship of China is having a really hard time dealing with Hong Kong, because Hong Kong has really started to enjoy what it's like to have a bit of freedom of speech and democracy. So that's a big problem for China. And so China, for example, China is really having to figure out, what are we going to do? Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn. Pluto in retrograde is kind of like, okay, well, I really don't care about any of this, frankly. I'm just doing what I have to do. I'm just going to do demolition. Anything and everything that is not viable or functional or has any integrity in terms of structure, in terms of honesty, in terms of reliability, in terms of dependability, anything that smells of fraud, fake, phony, I'm just going to crush it. And I don't really care about the consequences. I'm just going to crush it because it's not viable. It doesn't comply with the laws of the universe over the long term. So you put all that stuff together, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto retrograde. It's a bit like a sort of controlled demolition, when they destroy skyscrapers and they do it in stages, like, and there's a big pile of dust. In the tarot, you could consider it like a tower moment, like an extended chronic tower moment for the whole of the summer of America. Okay? Let's see. So, all of that makes sense to me. As far as I'm concerned, so long as you are navigating your life in a very genuine, authentic, responsible manner, and you're adhering as closely as you can to the laws of nature, not to the laws of how you were conditioned, not to the rules, not to the rules of the federal government, not to the rules of the Federal Reserve, but to the laws of nature. If you adhere to the laws of nature, then you might be less impacted by all of this stuff. Okay, the next thing is, we just had the new moon in Gemini, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go back again to something I showed you a while ago. If I can do this without causing too much confusion. Let me see if I can find it. No, that's not it. Give me a second. I'm looking for some charts here. that I made. Yes, it's an astrodoodle. Don't get too excited. Okay, so I think that'll have to do, this one here. Okay, so I'm going to put this one aside. This is kind of a mess. I used it a while ago in a show, but I haven't... okay, let me just go to this thing here. Okay, do you see this big red blob here? I put this here because I see this as a very significant calendar moment in time. The North Node has just switched over here very recently into Gemini, over here, okay? And the South Node across planet Earth has switched over here to Sagittarius. So this is extremely significant to the United States. And why is that so? The reason that is so is because the United States has a very strong Sagittarius-Gemini axis across the 1st and 7th houses. Okay? So, another reason I wanted to... Where can I find it? Another reason I'm emphasizing the Gemini-Sagittarius axis is because look at this fellow. Does anybody recognize this name? Okay? This fellow was born with the Gemini North Node and a Sagittarius South Node. Not only that, his sun is conjunct the Gemini North Node in his own chart. And he has Uranus, the planet of upheaval, surprises, revolution, instability, is right there, very close to his sun, okay? So my feeling is that our dear Donald was born almost as some kind of monumental historic figure whose time has come. And I believe that this axis here pertains very closely to this axis here. Okay? So that's why I think the Gemini moon triggered a lot of jittery stuff across the world, across the planet. Because this Gemini new moon not only triggered the North Node axis, the North Node axis for our dear Donald Trump, but it also triggered the relationship axis of the United States, okay? So Sagittarius South Node, where it's thinking about itself all the time, and in some ways, grandiose ways. Basically, America has a bit of a reputation for thinking of itself as pretty awesome and insanely, outrageously optimistic, and having access to tremendous amounts of wisdom and knowledge. We have our amazing Constitution, which no one else on Earth has. No other nation or empire or population on Earth has a drafted, written constitution that we have, which enshrines certain things like freedom of speech, freedom of press, the right to bear arms and to protect ourselves, and the right to elect our leaders so that we can live under rule of law as opposed to rule of leader or rule of kings, okay? Most Americans do not like to be ruled by despots, okay? We have elected leaders who work for us. Those leaders work for us. We pay their salaries. And right now, as you can tell, this axis is being heavily amplified right now. So let me go back. So I don't know if you've noticed, I saw a few clips. Recently where there have been armed occupations, armed protests inside Capitol buildings of Michigan. We've got armed citizens coming out all over the country now. I got some kind of information early this morning that there's a new militia, very new, newly formed, that has gone viral very, very quickly. and it's based, I think, in the Carolinas, and it is an armed militia. And they've made it very, very simple. They're not trying to align with white power or white supremacy or anything. All they care about is protecting their rights. You know, there are a lot of people in America who believe that their rights are being usurped and circumvented and undermined by the federal government and the Federal Reserve simultaneously. The Federal Reserve owns the United States debt farm. The federal government is the managerial and operations system for the United States debt farm, and the state and local governments are the local, production line managers for the United States debt farm. And there are a lot of people who don't like it, because a lot of people are starting to wake up and realize, like, wow, there's a tremendous amount of restrictions on freedom of speech. There's a tremendous amount of choking on freedom of press, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure to control arms. There's a tremendous amount of pressure to comply, as though the United States is turning into like a communist dictatorship. Some people don't like that, and it's all being presented to us as the guise of, like, I'm the government. I know what's best for you. I care for you. I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it. Thank you very much. However, if you don't like what I'm telling you to do or how to do it, I reserve the right to sequester you. Okay? And so there are certain Americans who think, well, excuse me, that's not quite the way the Constitution works here. And so these people, apparently, I can't remember what they're called, but the guy who runs it and his wife, they've suddenly got like 20,000 members, and it's spreading across the country, because it's a very, very simple thing. We just care about the Constitution. And apparently he voiced it in a public forum when he was questioned, like, hey, his name is Adam Smith, okay? And they said, somebody asked him, like, hey, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith, so you got this new thing going, and you're basically telling us that if necessary, you will take up arms against people. And they said, yes, if somebody comes at me or my people or my group, and they are armed, and they're going to tell me what to do and how to do it, and it does not comply with my best interests as an American law-abiding citizen in compliance with the U.S. Constitution, I reserve the right to bear arms. And so the people went on to him, okay, so what would happen if shots were fired and they started to try to control you? And then he said, it's very simple, we're going to shoot back. And so the guy said, okay, so if you shoot back, are you a criminal? And he said, no, we're just protecting our rights until the Constitution. And it was very difficult for the guy to go forward from there, because anyone who shoots at those people is most likely to be a government representative of some sort, like a government militia or the cops or some kind of, what do they call it, martial law or SWAT teams or whatever it is, like basically like what they do in China and Europe with riot squads when they have riots against civil protest. In the United States, we're allowed to have civil protest. If things get violent and ugly, then the authorities have the right to, try and subdue the violence. Okay? So that's normal. We do that in America all the time. They do it all over Europe. They do it in China. They have all sorts of protests. But this is different because this group is stating that all we care about is protecting our rights according to the Constitution. It's almost like things are frothing up and boiling up, okay? It's us and them, you and you. And so what I kind of wrote about in my book is how, do you remember in 1776, again, don't quote me, I'm not a historian, but I just remember vaguely that the whole idea of 1776 was that a bunch of leaders in the United States at that time basically said, enough is enough is enough. We are not going to have anything to do with you, the British Empire, anymore. You're out of here. We are not going to be controlled by kings and rulers and monarchs. We don't want a monarchy anymore. We want democracy. So we are going to elect our leaders, and we are going to disconnect ourselves from your country, and we are no longer going to pay taxes to you, because as far as we're concerned, no taxation without representation. And if necessary, we will take up arms. And so that's what happened. And so 1776 is considered the birth of America. Okay, so let me keep going a little bit. You'll see where I'm getting to in a moment. Hold on. Stay there. Okay, so let me keep going. Right now, this energy is very activated inside of Mr. Donald Trump. Okay, this energy is very activated in the United States of America. It's almost like America is having the chance to face itself. And why do I say face itself along the axis of relationship, first house and seventh house? Well, here's my thoughts. This is the United States looking into itself, the United States. And so what I feel is happening right now, the population of the United States, here we are, one complete Pluto cycle later, about 250 years, the American population is no longer looking at the British Empire as the evil, demonic, despotic force. The population of America is now looking directly at itself. Oh my gosh, what does that mean? Like, wow, we, the people of the United States of America, have allowed ourselves to be usurped, undermined, controlled, and devalued by these people over here who have decided that they are basically operating like monarchies right now. Okay? They go in and out of rotation like an office, but it's like a monarchy. They're operating like kings, like King Obama, King Trump. Those are in the last, that's what's happened recently, ever since whatever it was, 2008 or something. And so that's how I look at it. And so I think what's happening is like the United States population is starting to look at itself across the first house and seventh house axis. Okay? The outrageous optimism of America, believing that we can do anything that we can, and so we do, is now meeting resistance at the very, very localized level. We're looking like very closely at the mirror here. Like, well, wait a minute. We, the people, are now starting to recognize that there are certain other members of the group of we, the people, who are starting to behave as though they own us. They operate us. Okay? So we, the people over here, basically 350 million people over here who are looking at about, 200,000 government employees over here, they're starting to realize, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of us who don't actually like that. We don't actually like what's going on in America right now, and we're looking at the mirror, like America is looking at itself. Like this. Oh my God. Oh my God. And especially the people who are carrying arms and making vows to protect the Constitution, those are the people most likely over here who are going to call out the treachery over here. And so that pressure is building up, okay? And it really started to bring in a lot of major global news headlines pretty much around the time of the Gemini new moon. And we are accelerating towards a Gemini Sagittarius full moon. Not only that, but we have some eclipses pending, okay? So what I feel is that we're building up like a bit of a pressure cooker right now. We have the full moon, okay? June the 5th, the sun in Gemini, moon in Sagittarius. Oh my gosh, that sits directly on top of the United States first house, seventh house axis, okay? Not only that, it sits directly on top of the Donald Trump Gemini Sagittarius axis. Not only that, the Uranus in Sagittarius axis inside Donald Trump is going to be heavily activated at that time. So what does that say? Okay, from my feeling, what that says is that there will be more and more chatter, like buzz, news, social media, random, unpredictable, highly volatile, highly disruptive, revolutionary type of experiences, activities, and events. Mostly across the world, but also in America, because what America does affects the rest of the planet, whether we like it or not. And a lot of people are envious that we have our Constitution, and that even though a lot of people hate guns and hate the idea that Americans can just go out and slaughter anybody they like when they're in the mood for it. It's about the only thing that we have that stops us from maintaining and protecting our Constitution. And so I feel that there is so much economic pressure, so much political pressure, so much personal pressure building up between Americans and the owners of America, basically the Federal Reserve and the federal government, okay, because they're the owner-operators of the United States debt farm. Everybody over here, about 335 million people, are all cows on the debt farm. And some of those cows are waking up and saying, wait a minute, we don't actually want to be cows on a debt farm. That's not actually like what we signed up for here. What are we doing? How do we get into this position? And I think that's what's happening. I think people are starting to wake up. People are waking up. Planet Earth is waking up. And I think our president, Mr. Donald Trump, is acting as a catalyst, because he is deeply despised by probably hundreds of millions of people. And he is adored almost like a god incarnate by other people. And he says outrageous things. He does outrageous things in total defiance of common sense, logic, science, the law, anything. He doesn't care. He does it because he can. Nobody is stopping him. Nobody. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, left-wing, right-wing, socialist, anarchist. It doesn't matter. I think in the end it comes down to the rule of law and the Constitution, which has these things we have enshrined in America, like we reserve the right to freedom of speech. We reserve the right to have elected leaders, and if we don't like them anymore, we have the right to elect them out of office, okay? And if they are not going to be elected out of office, we have the right to bear arms and take them out of office by force. Got it? I'm not saying, hey, let's go have an armed revolution, but we have the right to do that in America. We have the right to armed revolution. Don't ask me to, I'm scared shitless. I'm just going to hide in my own little micro bunker. But there are people out there who would be more than happy to put their lives at stake in order to protect their liberties, their freedoms, their Constitution. So I'm just putting that out there. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, let me go to the next thing here. Now, you've probably noticed from these calendar moments, we're getting very close to the American birthday. And it just so happens on June 21st, we have the Cancer new moon. Okay? So that's a very, very strong energy that's going to trigger the United States itself, like the energy of a newborn baby. And I think there will be a lot of, I would say, stimulation going on at that time. Also at that time, this Cancerian energy over here is going to be deeply in contrast with Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. There's going to be a massive, massive polarity, okay? I'm covering up May because over here, roughly, we're going to have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto hanging around over here, all retrograde, okay? At the same time, in Capricorn, at the same time that we're going to have the Sun and the Moon over here in Cancer, okay? Now, I don't know about you, but this looks like a tremendous amount of opposition, intense pressure. So if you look at this as a solar chart, imagine this as the solar chart, birthday chart for the United States, it would look like this. Okay? Now, what do you notice about this chart and the other chart I showed you earlier? This is the first house, this is the seventh house. This is a tremendous amount of pressure, external pressure, coming onto the identity of the United States that we have over here. The energy in which our Constitution was founded, okay? This could represent the identity of the United States. This represents anything and everything that opposes the United States, okay? For example, heavily oppressive energy from other people, other self-appointed despots and rulers, okay? Who have gone outrageously over the top in self-appointing their powers to undermine us, the people. In other words, we, the people, are looking at certain members of our own people, other citizens of the United States, who happen to be our oppressors. And we're going to see it face on, okay? When we hit the new moon over here in Cancer, and then 2 weeks later, watch what happens. I have to actually start a new piece of paper. Sorry, I just wanted to mention the other thing. That big red line that I just showed you happens to coincide, the way I look at it. Okay, if you look at it this way, so that's Donald's charts. Hold on, let me show you. If you look at it this way, okay, this is like a birth chart of the United States. Okay? Now, do you see this big red fat axis here? Okay? This is Mercury in Cancer. This is the Sun in Cancer. And guess what? The United States was born with Pluto in Cancer, 27 degrees, opposed by Mercury in Cancer, about 27 degrees. Now, is it a coincidence that this highly volatile axis of creative destruction, think about it, Sun, Pluto, creativity, destruction, is it a coincidence that this axis here, okay, is happening at the same time as this axis here? Excuse me, I'm getting all my bits of paper messed up. Sorry, hold on. I wish I could do this better. I have techniques and ways to do it, but I didn't rehearse any of this, and I can't figure out how to do it effectively the way that I want to right now. Okay, let me go over this again. Let's just call this summer. Let's call this July, okay? June and July. So this is extremely stripped down, okay? This is a global chart, roughly June and July 2020, an astrodoodle. God, I can't spell my own words. Astrodoodle. See this one, okay? This is your very, very basic terlumination astrodoodle. In the summer of 2020, we're going to have a new moon in Cancer on the 21st, okay? Here. Right here, okay? And at the same time as we get that new moon in Cancer on the 21st, we're going to have this still massive cluster of heavy Capricorn over here. So, let's turn this into an American natal chart. Watch this. This is now the birth chart of natal America. Okay? It's born with the Sun in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn, about 27 degrees. So is it some kind of divine, bizarre, extreme coincidence that this axis here is lining up with June the 21st over here, which matches this axis here? I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think this is highly significant in terms of global history, especially the history of the United States of America. In 1776, the United States was born. Pluto was here in Capricorn, and now, 250 years later, it's back here again. And now 250 years later, we've got the sun here again. So it's just like a massive, massive 250-year sundial, and we've come in full circle. Okay? So to me, this is freakish. This alignment here with this alignment here happening at the same time as this alignment here. Because guess what? This alignment here sits very closely with this alignment here, which happens to sit very closely with all of this alignment here. Okay? The Gemini-Sagittarius axis. And now watch this. Mr. Donald Trump, he also has Mercury in Cancer, Saturn in Cancer, and Venus in Cancer. So he is deeply in love and married with the United States, even though he's highly kind of unstable and highly unpredictable. He is somehow, I don't know, divinely ordained, I would say, to be here at this moment in time. I think it's absolute insanity that this is, not insanity, I think it's just mind-boggling in terms of astrological alignments. And so I'm just putting it out there. You heard it first here at Tarot Illumination, okay? Okay, that has to go somewhere else, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, let me go back. I'm going to hang out with you again. Stay there. You know, I'm not an expert at these things. I'm not a mundane astrologer. I don't have huge computers with thousands of dollars of software where I can chart and plot all these things. Okay? And I'm not a historian. I know very little about world history or American history. I'm just giving you my take on it, just from somebody who every now and again I check my phone for news things that interest me personally. Okay? And I just felt someone has to talk about this. Someone has to put it out there. Someone has to make this information public. I'm doing it because I don't see it being made public anywhere. I'm connecting a lot of dots, okay? There's a lot of dots that are out there that look random, but they're not. They're beautifully orchestrated in some kind of celestial piece of sacred geometry. It's absolutely beautiful when you look at it from the perspective of heaven. It's mind-boggling. We are alive at this time, 2020, in world history, to live through this, to witness this. It's going to be catastrophic for some people. It's going to be liberating for some people. For some people, they're going to have a blast. For some people, it's going to be depression and misery and losses, financial losses. People are going to have generational wealth destroyed. Okay? Anyway, I just wanted to mention all of that stuff. The next thing I wanted to point out, which I haven't written down yet, is this one. We have another calendar moment coming up. Some of you know this already. It is the 4th of July. Okay, so it looks like it's a little far away. We're not even in June yet. But guess what happens on the 4th of July? Apart from American Independence Day and, you know, people are going to have fireworks and barbecues, there's more stuff going on in the heavens. Watch this. Okay? I'm just going to put it on one piece of paper. And then I'll add it to this thing here. Sorry, I know it looks very messy. Hello, Karen. I see you in there in New Zealand. Let me mark this over here. These are the key dates. We've already passed this date, okay? We're heading towards the full moon, okay? June 5th, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius. 2 weeks later, okay, this is an eclipse, people. This eclipse is sitting on top of the American Gemini Sagittarius nodal axis. And the nodal axis is directly related to the eclipses, okay? So please remember, this is a very important date. June 21st, we're moving into one of the Cancer Capricorn eclipses. This is the Cancer new moon. The sun and the moon aligned in Cancer, opposing all that Capricorn energy. So this is a very high pressure eclipse as well, highly relevant to the United States. And then we have, give me a second. Sorry, I call this TL rant. I'm just going to go over here. 4th of July 2020. Guess what? We have another eclipse, and it is on the 4th of July. Well, what do you know? Isn't that freaking amazing? I think it is. I'm pretty, kind of blown away. So at that time, let's see if I can do a little micro doodle here. I'll do it like this, okay? I'll put Cancer on the horizon. Over here. So the sun will be in Cancer. And this is going to be America. And at the same time, on the 4th of July, the moon is going to be over here in Capricorn. Okay? So we're going to have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, plus the moon over here in Capricorn. Okay? So, I don't know, this is like an eclipse on steroids. It's like an opposition polarity on steroids. This, okay? This thing, and I don't know how to describe it. I don't know enough about astrology to comment, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? All I know is that it's very extreme. It's very, very extreme, okay? So this is a massive polarity. We have 3 eclipses in a row. That's a lot of eclipses. Normally we get about 4 a year. This year I call it that we get 7 because of what happened in 2019 on December 27th. But anyway, so this is the point that I'm trying to make. This is a build-up in pressure. I see it as a build-up in the pressure of revolutions, the pressure of instability, the pressure of America coming into a stark awakening of seeing itself in the mirror, and a lot of America and Americans realizing how we have betrayed ourselves by allowing ourselves to be usurped of our constitutional rights, okay? So it's already started here, okay? Or in May. It's building up over here. June 5th is the first of the eclipse. June 21st is the next eclipse. And the next eclipse after that is this big one, okay? So this is 3 eclipses in a row. 1, 2, 3. That's just a huge surge, okay? So, well, all I'm suggesting is maybe if everybody could keep an eye out to what's happening in their lives, in their world, over, the next couple of months, because it's a lot of pressure building up. And as you know from watching other videos, Tarot Illumination considers eclipses as evolutionary gateways. The pressure builds up and up and up, and it forces people into like an elevator shaft that goes upwards, and you are shot upwards, and then you are expelled out the other side, and you can't go back down. Okay, I see eclipses as evolutionary gateways. And if you resist the gateway, in other words, if you are evolving and living your life from here, the eclipses come in, you are elevated to here, the eclipse finishes, and you are moved to a new chapter in life over here. Okay? That's evolution. Now imagine that 3 times in a row. 1 eclipse. Okay? Another eclipse. another eclipse, okay? So these are huge evolutionary leaps that are being basically pressured onto the United States, especially, more than any other country in the world, more than any other population. And it's happening in a very, very stark, highly targeted way. Okay? So anyway, I just wanted to share all that stuff with you. Let's have a look. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm not to say what's good or what's bad. I'm just concerned. I'm just seeing these as like what I would call astrological weather events. You know how I like to do tarot readings, and I look at that little bottom card, I consider that the weather. I look at it mostly as what I call astrological weather, divine timing, divine intervention, sacred geometry. To me, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful the way like human history plays out, and you can see these correlations between like mundane astrology and human history. It's mind-boggling. Again, I'm not an expert, but I noticed the patterns. The patterns became very evident to me kind of when I was a kid, and I'm not very academic. I can only do things by osmosis or by touch. So I just had to live through it, and it took me a very, very long time to start to see some of the patterns that I'm seeing here. Like the big thing about 2020, I was seeing it in around 2004, 2005, and it became more clear in around 2010, 2011, after we got through the ingress of Pluto in Capricorn around 2008, 2009. And everybody knows what happened then, okay? That was highly predictable. Okay, so we're getting to a much higher pressure situation right now. Whatever happened in 2008, 2009, that was just like a baby's whimper compared to what we're dealing with right now. Okay, so it's going to affect everybody. Global restructuring. The whole of planet Earth is going to be restructured in the way that human beings relate to each other, the way that countries relate to each other, the way that currencies relate to each other, the way that economies relate to each other. Okay? Oh, I should mention, with the Gemini-Sagittarius nodal axis right now, to me that makes perfect sense. You can see it very evident in human behavior. Like the Sagittarius South Node, which would equate to having unlimited travel, exploration, vacationing, unlimited, has suddenly come crashing down. And the North Nodal axis, which is all about Gemini, is basically telling everybody on planet Earth, listen people, stop butting into everyone else's life. Mind your own business. Take care of your business. Take care of the minute factors in your life that you normally try to avoid by going on big vacations because you don't want to think about the big stuff. Now you have to think about the big stuff and how it is impacting you in your day-to-day life on the microscopic, personal, individual level. You with your relatives, your family, your friends, your siblings, your co-workers, your neighbors. It's a much, much tighter lens. So the question is, what are you guys doing about it now? How are you operating? How are you conducting yourselves in the minute details of your life? Okay? So the pressure is going to increase. Okay? Everyone on planet Earth is going to be forced to have to contend with themselves and their own behavior in a much more personal, private, perhaps uncomfortable way. It's just so much easier to wig out and bug out when you can because you can. It's not possible anymore. Okay. Path Traveler, I see your notes. That's a big bang. Okay, I'm going to do something a little bit scary because I see revolutionary energy happening, building up everywhere. Like the Russians have been extremely, let's say, irresponsible in some of their behavior with the Air Force and their behavior with some of the Middle Eastern countries. China is becoming extremely belligerent with its population. In other words, the more and more its population realizes it's being treated as a massive slave camp, more and more Chinese people are saying, well, wait a minute, I don't really want to be a slave on a slave camp. Maybe those people in Hong Kong have a point. Maybe we should go to a revolution. Maybe we should say, "Up you" to the Chinese government. And then Americans are saying to their own government, maybe we should say, "Up you" to our own government. The beauty about the United States is we have that enshrined in our Constitution. We can do that by law. And the government can't stop us. They can try to stop us, but we reserve the right to bear arms. Okay? So, as perverse as it is, as terrifying as it is, that I could just go to a gun store tomorrow. I could go to Big Five tomorrow. I can go to the gun and ammo shop down the road in the other part of town tomorrow. I can buy massive guns and massive amounts of ammo. Just like that. Because I'm an American and I have an American driving license and a passport. See? I can do that if I want to. The federal government, the local government, the police, they can't stop me. Arms sales and gun sales have shot through the roof in the United States recently. I wonder why. Anyway, I'm not trying to, I don't do sales and marketing for guns and ammo. I'm just pointing out a few things that strike me as highly relevant right now. And by the way, you know, a lot of us have had a taste of Saturn in Aquarius. Okay, that's already happened. And Saturn is retrograding, and soon it's going to go back into Capricorn. So that's going to be another amount of pressure from the reality check police squeezing down onto the American people. And the people who consider themselves to be the reality check police, in other words, the Federal Reserve and the federal government, they're going to behave as if they are God's own appointed reality check police. However, that is actually not in alignment with the laws of nature. The reality is, those self-appointed gods of the reality check police answer to a higher form of energy called love, the healing power of love. And so they will be called out. So what does that tell you? Path said it, the Big Bang. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if you see armed revolution. Okay, I'm not going to say I'm going to light the fuse. I'm not trying to light a fuse. I'm not trying to encourage it. I'm not trying to discourage it. All I'm suggesting is that from my observations, looking at history as I know it, as I understand it, looking at the charts as I know it, looking at all the factors going on, I see all the ingredients coalescing towards just one tiny little spark that ignites a tremendous amount of residual resentment, anger, and bitterness inside the American people, inside the debt cows that live on the United States debt farm that is owned and operated, owned by the Federal Reserve and operated by the federal government. Basically, 350 million debt cows are going to start saying, you know what? We're sick of being debt cows. I don't want to do this anymore. And then they're going to meet resistance from here. So it's going to be, this is what I see happening. America versus America. The self-appointed monarchs, the powers that be, federal government, the Federal Reserve, basically going to war against the public, the cows on the debt farm, because from their perspective, we're just peasants. We're just expendable cows on a debt farm, you know. They don't really care about us, just so long as you get up every day and you consume and you produce. Okay? So anyway, what I'm sensing I guess I'm going to wrap up the video in a little bit, but what I'm sensing is this kind of pressure, okay? And it's getting very volatile, it's getting unstable, and somebody somewhere may crack. And that exposes the dynamic that I'm talking about. America looking in the mirror of America. Instead of American people looking into Great Britain and the monarchies, 1776, it's now America looking at America, okay? America looking at Americans. And it's building up, okay? There's a tremendous amount of, let's say, pent-up energy that is looking for release, looking for expression. And there are certain powers that be that actually don't like some of the freedom of speech. And so there's a lot of repression and suppression and censorship going on. We all know that. I don't have to retell you my stories from last year or the year before. I don't want to go there. I'm just happy to have my little channel. Thank you very much. I'm still here. But yeah, it's sometimes this is what's happening, okay? This is what is happening. So be aware, okay? All right, so let's have a look. What's going on, people? I think I've done enough ranting. I just had to get that out of my system because it's just been bubbling up for days. I can't help it. When I see these charts, when I see these pieces of divine sacred geometry, I am just dazzled. I am dazzled by the synchronicity between certain people, certain historic events, and certain, let's say, markers in what we call the future. Okay? Hello everybody, this is Tarot Illumination. It is Thursday evening in the United States. It is the 28th of May. It's been a pleasure to be here. I hope you got some kind of entertainment or useful information out of this little show. You're very welcome to throw gobs of money into the super chat. You can also go to tarotlumination.com and put it direct into the Tarot Illumination PayPal. Or you can just enjoy the video, whatever you want. I'm still available for personal readings. And hopefully we'll be here for Sunday Night Live where we'll do many super chat readings, okay? Thank you very much. Let me just go check in with everybody. Let's see. Okay. So it looks to me, I can't see, is there something wrong with the YouTube analytics? I can't see anything. I don't know who's here except by what I can see on the chat. Hello Lena, hi Karen in New Zealand. Hello Love Triber. Hello Boot. Hello Boot. What was that? Path Traveler, I see Path Traveler. Oh, I'm looking at the chat right now. Gigi? I didn't say it. Oh, Gabby Girl? Was that you, Gabby Girl? Hi, Gabby Girl. Good to see you. Anyway, if I've missed anybody, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to miss you. Tabitha Rosati, I see you. Hello, Tabitha. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Hello, Bill, we'll talk, okay? Just you and me. We'll talk, all right? If you're still here. Okay, so I think I'm gonna play a little Tarot Illumination song. Okay. Oh, what did YouTube do with my super chats? Oh, right. Thank you. Oh, it's a little bit weird. So yeah, last week I had a lot of trouble setting up the show. Like 4 or 5 tries to get everything operating. YouTube was not working very well, and they demonetized the shows. They sent me messages that I've got copyright violations on my channel as soon as I started broadcasting. And all the materials that I use over here, everything, I have permissions, okay? I have permissions to do what I do and how I do it. With the softwares, the music, the sounds, the lighting, everything, okay? I've got permissions. I pay money to do this. I pay money to run my shows, okay? And so it was very disturbing. And eventually, on the last run, actually, Pat, they did let me keep the super chat, as far as I can tell, and they did not demonetize. They threatened to demonetize it, but they removed the threat later on in the show. So it's like somebody's watching. To me, that's very, very disturbing. Like there's somebody watching, seeing if there's a way that they can like take you down. To me, that's very disturbing. That's a very sick version of the reality check police, okay? Anyway, all is good. Everything is as good as can be here right now, considering there's so much oppression and suppression going on. I'm actually just lucky to actually be able to breathe and broadcast. It's mind-boggling that I can do that at all with this channel, but so it's here. What's that, Lena? You should do lives on Twitch and people donate by PayPal only. Really? Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to wrap it up now. And it's been a lot of fun hanging out. So, I'm not going to do a recap of all the charts and astrodoodles because it was kind of chaotic. If anyone's interested, you can watch the rewinds, okay?